For lots of people with OCD, COVID was a living nightmare. Shockingly, for me, it became one of the most calming years because, well, firstly, because there wasn't so much social contact. I couldn't believe that we had to be reminded to wash our hands on the news. For me, I wash my hands all the time, and I couldn't believe that people weren't doing that, and or that we had to be reminded to keep our distance, or that we didn't really understand the transmission of infectious illnesses. And so I was overjoyed that everyone was actually paying attention to these sort of very simple rules. Every time I start a new project, whether it's theatre or film or TV, it's like a first day at school again. So you're meeting a whole group of new people, and that's a whole new opportunity for a flow of new viruses to kind of circulate, and you have to kiss someone, you have to do an intimate scene with someone. And that was something that certainly in my early 20s, when I was doing more of those scenes, I felt much less able to talk to my co-star about it and say, this is something that's really worrying me. You have to have a sense of humour about it.
Well, it certainly helps, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's why it's often trivialised, is that from the outside it looks ridiculous sometimes. If you explain a compulsion to someone or explain a thought that you might have, it might seem almost comic, but it's really serious to the person who has it. But I think that there is room for that sort of levity when you're trying to put someone in the mindset, which is what I tried to do with the book.
Virgin Radio.
Cue Vassos to cue the intro. Over to you, Vass.
You know her from upstairs in War and Peace, downstairs in Downton Abbey, and all over the place at Clifton Hill. She's now written a memorable memoir, Scorpions, out today. So let's all give it uppence for Tuppence Middleton!
Yay, Tuppence Middleton! Oh, Tuppence, you poor thing! Having read your book,
I know, I'm okay, really.
It is a memoir of sorts, I suppose, isn't it? It's an OCD memoir. Read your book yesterday. Listened to you on Bryony's podcast. She is a fellow OCD sufferer, being challenged by it. I don't know how you'd refer to that. Yeah. It's amazing. Loads of questions for you. Loads of questions. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Here we go. By the way, loads of people already WhatsApping us about the subject,
great.
which is great, isn't it? Is it true you don't own an iron?
I don't own an iron, no. You can probably tell by the dress that I'm wearing today.
Why might that be, Tuppence?
Well, contrary to what you might think, I'm guessing that you are wondering if it's because I'm scared of it being left on.
Well, I think that's what you alluded to, because Bryony talked about her iron.
Yes.
Having to take it to work in a bag because it's easier than worrying about whether she's left it on, because she can see that it's with her at work.
Well, it's certainly one less thing to have to turn off, but actually it's because I prefer my clothes kind of crinkly.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's it.
That's so rubbish, isn't it? I thought when you said I don't even have an iron, I thought, oh my God, that's really extreme.
No. So that, I mean, yes, the iron would be one more thing to think about, but that's not the particular
All right,
reason.
so that speaks, because also when you were talking to Bryony about that, she was sharing photographs with you on her phone of things like her hob at home. Why might that be?
Because we have identical photo albums on our phones, which are basically the majority full of pictures of hobs, cookers, light switches, taps, front doors, things that I need to make sure are turned off, not running, shut properly before I leave the house.
And so you take photographic evidence with you from that day's hob, that day's tap, to reassure you when you're no longer at home that everything at home is okay.
Yes, it's sort of hard evidence, so that when I'm in front of the object or the appliance or whatever it is that's challenging me, then I don't believe that it's off. So I sort of take the photograph. I suppose it's actually another compulsion in itself. It's sort of reassurance seeking. Instead of asking someone else, is this off? Then it's providing myself with a sort of backup in case I worry about it later in the day.
And you speak to it in as much as you say one of the issues with your particular flavour of OCD is that your brain doesn't believe your eyes or sometimes your hands.
Yes, so I can be looking at my tap and I can see that there's no water coming out of it, and I can hold my hand under the tap for a count of 8, which is usually the kind of the count that I use when I'm doing mental counting rituals. And even though I can feel it's not hitting my hand, my eyes don't trust that. It's a sort of a miscommunication between your brain and your eyes, and then you have these kind of cyclical, repetitive, intrusive thoughts.
And here you are talking about it and having experienced it thousands and thousands of times, but that doesn't make it any more believable.
No.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah, it's totally illogical. I mean, most people with OCD are logical people. They can understand the logic of the situation. I know in reality that the tap is off or that the front door is closed, but there's something in me that doesn't let me leave until I have this sort of satisfaction that it's done. And that can be a sort of bargaining with whatever it is the OCD in your brain is represented by. So, okay, if I touch this a certain amount of times, if I count 8 while I look at this thing, then something bad might not happen, or I won't get sick, which is something that drives a lot of my compulsions, is the idea of catching something that will make me vomit.
Yeah, which gets us to ametophobia.
Yes.
Which we'll talk about in a second or two. And so the 8, your 8 counts speak to an original 16 root.
Yes.
Tell us about the 16 root and therefore the divisions of 16 or the multiples of 16.
Yeah, so I always, when I was a child, I guess when I was around about 11 or 12, when I first started developing these routines, my favourite number was 16. And then I used to do things in numbers that were divisible by that. So I became fixated on the number 8. So I would have to count corners to the count of 8, looking at each corner. And then I would have to sort of start in the reverse direction. So it was fair on the next corner. And then each corner had 8 counts, but I started in a different sort of cycle. So it was this never-ending counting rituals, and that would be corners of rooms or my bed or my window frame, and it would become so prolonged that I would struggle to go to bed at night because I would take so long getting through the door to my room. And that was when my mum first discovered that I was doing these routines.
Wow. I mean, the book is so fascinating, and it starts off with your ME experience at school, doesn't it? Which is a whole... Is it different? Is it linked, do you think, or...?
I think that there may be a link. I think it's still so under-researched. They still don't really know what causes OCD. I think it's probably a mix of environmental factors and, nature and nurture. But for me, I was quite unwell with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME, when I was 11. And I had months off school, lost a lot of weight, felt nauseous all the time. And eventually I recovered, but it was soon after that these OCD symptoms started. And I think that the fact that I was so scared of becoming sick was linked to this sort of unresolved nausea that I had for months.
Yeah.
I was feeling sick, but never actually sick. And it sort of, I think, was the start of the building this fear.
Yeah, I mean, it is a heavy subject, and it is debilitating, and it's life-changing and life-challenging, and it can cause people issues with occupations and their relationships, and ultimately, I would imagine, with their mortality. But you talk about it with a lot of levity in the book as well. It's laugh out loud funny in parts.
Oh, thank you. Well, I think you have to have a sense of humour about it.
Well, it certainly helps, doesn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's because you can see that from the outside, and I think it's why it's often trivialised, is that from the outside it looks ridiculous sometimes. If you explain a compulsion to someone or explain a thought that you might have, it might seem almost comic, but it's really serious to the person who has it. But I think that there is room for that sort of levity when you're trying to put someone in the mindset, which is what I tried to do with the book.
What are the advantages of having OCD? Because you do talk about the advantages of OCD.
Yeah, I think you have to find some positives. Yeah. Otherwise, it could drive you crazy. But I think, for me, I think that I've always had such a focus on health and sickness, so I'm always very vigilant about scanning my body and checking that I'm okay. And maybe that's, I suppose there's
you get less ill.
Yeah, you get less ill.
You just do.
Yeah, and I think you're always prepared for disaster. You have these kind of disaster scenarios set up in your head constantly. So when something bad does happen, you're often strangely calm. I think they say that about people with depression too, that because you are always expecting the worst, that when something bad happens, there is a sense of it's what I was waiting for.
Almost relief in a bizarre way.
Yeah, you're so prepared for it.
Yeah. Would it be true then, in this situation, that you are walking in here today talking about your brilliant book, you come in on your counter OCD automatic pilot, as you've referred to it?
Yeah. So
what does that mean?
Well, I've had these routines, as I call them, in my life, and I've had these thoughts since I was 11. So I've lived with it for longer than I haven't. So it's just a second nature thing now. I can leave the house and press my front door 8 times and pull it 8 times and press it 8 times and pull it 8 times as a part of.
Have you done that this morning?
I do it every morning because but it's something I don't think about anymore. I can talk to someone and also be counting in my head, or I can be, counting the hours from when I think someone might have been ill and counting 48 hours from that. So that's my sort of incubation period where I think, okay, if I'm going to get any symptoms, they're going to turn up within this period. So then I'll immediately start calculating that if someone tells me they've been ill, and those things that you do without thinking about it, but that are sort of low level exhausting.
Do you think it's a modern day issue, and I don't mean like in the 90s or Gen Z, I mean like in the last couple of 100 years? Do you think like the cave people had OCD? Do you think it's to do with society or socioeconomic things, or the madness of the world that we've created that we think is better than nature and it surely isn't?
I don't know. I suppose it's all linked to control, isn't it? So it's maybe it's the more we feel out of control, the more that these behaviours turn up. But I was also speaking to a therapist recently who told me that ametophobia, especially, but
which
also
is fear of vomiting,
and also OCD is much more prevalent in women, which was interesting. And I've had so many mothers contacting me about their daughters who've had symptoms around age 11 or 12. So that was the same age I was diagnosed.
Interesting. And of course, for those of us who thankfully, gratefully aren't challenged by OCD, when you say things like it affected a lot of your decision on whether or not to be a mother because of the ametophobia aspect of it, because obviously children vomit a lot.
Yeah.
You think, that opened my eyes and ears. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, some people don't have children.
Because of this.
Well, because of that, and also because of morning sickness, because they worry that
of
pregnancies.
Themselves.
Yes, so they'll be sick, and also so that their children will be sick and they'll catch something. So it really, it can really affect someone's decision whether
Does ametophobia often go hand in hand with OCD?
Yes, I think they are common bedfellows, as it were. I think they can exist separately, but I think it's quite a common thing because contamination fear is a very common intrusive thought pattern for OCD. So I think ametophobia is an extension of that, not just washing your hands because you think there is bacteria, but also that you're going to catch something which will make you vomit.
So when you and Bryony get together, by the way, if you're enjoying this conversation and you're tempted to buy the book, you should also listen to Tuppence's conversation with Bryony Gordon on the Life Bryony, her amazing podcast. So when you get together with somebody else, and it seems to me, by the way, I have no idea, right? It seems to me that you have a similar strain of OCD.
Yes.
Is that a relief when you talk to each other? What is that like?
It's a total relief. And, also people having gotten in touch with me when I started talking about it, it's just really opened my eyes to how many people go through this and how many people have similar. You always think that with your own OCD that, until you talk about it, you think everyone thinks like that. And it's only when, people look at you with that strange look that you realise, okay, so maybe this is something unusual. And actually, when you speak to other people with OCD, it's a huge relief, and you sort of feel, God, it's you feel a bit less alone.
Yeah. And now for somebody with OCD, it could be observed, and you've observed it about your own career, that you have an interesting job considering you have OCD.
Yes.
Because it can be quite intimate, your job, can't it, with other people?
And it's constantly new people. I mean, every time I start a new project, whether it's theatre or film or TV, it's it's like a first day at school again. So you're meeting a whole group of new people, and that's a whole new opportunity for a flow of new viruses to kind of circulate, and you have to kiss someone, you have to do an intimate scene with someone. And that was something that certainly in my early 20s, when I was doing more of those scenes, I felt much less able to talk to my co-star about it and say, this is something that's really worrying me. And now I feel better about doing that. But I mean,
that must be. There couldn't be a worse job if you're worried about catching a virus from someone to the extent that you clean door handles and all this kind of stuff. As we were all doing COVID anyway, we could talk about COVID because I know that was a very interesting period for you. But then you think, you're going to kiss a stranger, basically. I mean, somebody you know, but you couldn't be doing anything. That's it, isn't it? That's right up there with the last thing you want to be doing in your life.
Yeah, well, it was actually a strange experience writing the book because I was suddenly by myself and I just thought, oh, this is nice. I could get used to this. I felt so much calmer and so much more sort of creatively free in a way. But no, I think it's something about... There is something in me which I think wants to challenge that. Yeah. So, that's what I feel so passionately about, I suppose, is that I think you can live with this condition and yes, it can be debilitating and you can not leave the house and, you have these examples like Howard Hughes, which are so extreme, but I think you can also get to a place where you can function with it.
Wow. It's you talked about when you were in the Richard Burton, Elizabeth Taylor play, and, obviously you were with your co-star and you had to kiss and stuff like that. And it's like, would that be how cognitively did you have to distance yourself from what was going on to get through that? What preparation was there involved with that? How relieved are you that your career is going to roles that's not as snoggy as you put it?
Not as snoggy. Well, I was actually on that particular project. I was really able to talk to my co-star and say, actually, this is something that is making me really anxious. And if you get norovirus, please just tell me. Like, just give me an advance warning. Yeah. If your kids get sick, please tell me. So I was very open about that, and that made me a lot calmer being able to do that. But yeah, it feels like I'm snogging a lot less on camera or stage.
Bring on those different roles, shall we say. Yes, exactly. Loads of stuff coming in already. Becky says, listen to this is like listening to myself. I started with OCD age 11. Bang, there you go, bullseye. And mine has always been taps, plugs, doors. So it's touching things.
Touching, counting, checking that they're off. Yeah.
I had a successful teaching career, but it wasn't easy and ultimately led me to leaving when my ruminations were just too much to manage. I'm now 43. I took my first steps to getting help a few years ago. I had 12 sessions of CBT and I can't recommend it enough. Thank you for sharing this date. I know you went through CBT as well, didn't you?
Yes.
Linda in Lincolnshire says, I have the same as Tuppence and it's all consuming. Again, another lady. I take photos of my straightness before I leave the house. I also take photos of everything before I go away for more than a day. I hate even numbers, public toilets, and so many other things. It's a living nightmare. Can you speak to Linda there a little bit about her living nightmare?
God, yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because the idea she hates even numbers, I hate odd numbers. Yeah. It's just how you can have such an extreme... And there's this thing as well with OCD about this worry constantly that you hear someone else's compulsions and you might take them on. But Linda, I feel for you. I'm with you.
My God, Chris, I've always counted corners too. I was sitting here counting the corners on my breadboard whilst listening. This is Craig. We have a boy. Wow. There's a boy in the house, everyone. Craig in Liverpool. I like odd numbers, so if I see 4 corners, I blink open only one eye so I can see only one corner. Then I blink again, and that makes 5. Tuppence does the same. I thought it was only me in the world.
That makes total sense to me.
Do you ever get together, the OCDers? And do you think it would help if you did, or am I being... I don't mean to be sort of...
No, I think it's a great thing. I think anything... which kind of brings people together where they can talk about their experiences. I think there's probably loads of really great forums for it and all of that kind of stuff. I don't have a sort of OCD community, as it were, but having talked about it now, it really feels like that's opening up.
Yeah. More coming in. Emily in Shropshire. I've suffered from OCD for years. My fear is related to thinking I'm going to make people unwell or pass on a disease that I know I don't have. Difficult as a nurse.
Yeah. Yeah.
For actressy nurses, yes, same, isn't it? I talk openly about it as people need to learn more about it. Charmaine says, oh my goodness, it's so good to hear about the fear of vomit and emetophobia. When my family are ill, I literally feel like I need to be sick. Also, when they were little, I did. I spoke to another person once who said they had the same, but it's amazing to hear it on the radio.
Wow.
What about getting on planes?
Yeah, there's a chapter about that in my book. That's one of my biggest triggers, I think. I can't bear it because you're essentially trapped on what is, in my eyes, a giant incubator with people sat very close. And if someone starts to throw up, then you're trapped for however many hours and there's nowhere to go. It's like nightmare.
And you often ask your partner, don't you, about people? You say, do you think that person's ill? And your partner goes, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've no idea.
I mean, he's great in that respect. I also, my mum got the brunt of it before I met him.
I know.
So, and I think mums are often the sort of reassurance givers. But that is, as I was saying, it is a compulsion in itself, that reassurance seeking.
The acknowledgements are particularly touching, I think, in your book, because they're so important, aren't they? But lots of people say thanks to their editor, but it's not the same, is it? When you've written a book like this, it says here, to mum and dad, thank you doesn't really touch the sides, for supporting me no matter which paths I took, even the questionable ones. We've all been there. For believing I could do anything I put my mind to, for your immeasurable love, I owe you everything. And then there's one here, Tuppence, my eternal white rabbit. How do you say this sentence here?
Oh God, I don't have my glasses on.
Can you see it there?
Yeah.
Is it Jagalaska?
I'll probably say it. No, jag älskar oss och den där fåniga lilla rörestolen.
What does that mean? Can you say what it means or not?
That yes, it will sound quite cryptic. I love us and that silly little red chair.
Good. I like this silly little red chair gets through the OCD net then, or radar. Oh, wow. There are different dialogues in the book. There's a few more traditional chapters. And then there are dialogues with yourself. I was listening to a podcast with Steve Peters. You know Steve Peters? So Steve Peters wrote a book called The Chimp Paradox. And he's a sports psychologist. And he was advising Paula Radcliffe yesterday on her marathon. Well, why does he need to do that? She's Paula Radcliffe, right? Yeah. Well, because we all have the chimp inside us. And he says, you have to give your chimp a job, and sometimes you have to tell your chimp is there to warn you and to look out for you. But sometimes, like a parent, it can over-worry, it can helicopter a bit too much. And sometimes you have to tell your chimp, look, we've got this. And he said to Paula, one of the best ways. And the reason he's with her, A, he supported her in her professional career. B, she's running Tokyo, but as a civilian, if you like, this Sunday. So it's a whole different experience for her. So she's got different questions to ask him. He says, you can tell your chimp, the best thing you could ever tell your chimp is, look, we've decided to do this, not I. We have decided to do this. And we're good. We're doing it for fun. It's not life or death. I might win a shiny gold medal if it's in the Olympics, or I might get a gold medal or a medal at the end of Tokyo this Sunday because it's a sort of Civvy Street marathon as far as I'm concerned. But if we don't, it doesn't matter. Nobody's died. And then apparently the chimp calms down. But if the chimp doesn't calm down, you can tell it to go away, or you can ask it for its help, because as long as it knows where it is, it's all right. Does any of that whisper to you?
Yeah, well, I think that having spoken to lots of specialists now on this subject, therapists will often ask you to name your OCD or view it as a bully. So I think that lots of people, I was speaking to a graphic novelist who called his Marvin, and that's why I kind of came up with the scorpions as a way to sort of refer to it. I think there is it definitely helps to kind of see it as a separate entity to yourself, but of course it is always part of you.
And tell us about COVID and you then, and lockdown.
Yeah, so I think that probably for lots of people with OCD, COVID was a living nightmare. Shockingly for me, it became one of the most calming years because, firstly because there wasn't so much social contact, but primarily because I couldn't believe that we had to be reminded to wash our hands on the news. I mean, for me, I wash my hands all the time, and I couldn't believe that people weren't doing that, and or that we had to be reminded to keep our distance, or that we didn't really understand the transmission of infectious illnesses. And so I was overjoyed that everyone was actually paying attention to these sort of very simple rules. And as a result, I wasn't leaving the house as much because none of us were. So I wasn't having to check, or, if I only left for a 10-minute walk, then that meant, well, in 10 minutes, the likelihood of my whole house burning down or something terrible happening is less, or I might catch it, the inferno.
You were reassured by rules then?
I was reassured by rules and the lack of social contact, yeah. It was great.
So lockdown's over. Oh, no.
Yes. Oh.
Really?
Yes, so it was coming up with a series
I
of
presume
excuses.
you've watched Aviator.
I haven't actually. No, I haven't.
Right.
I think at the time I avoided it because I didn't want to pick up anything, any new
Triggers.
Any new compulsion. I think
Right.
anything that you see sometimes. I mean, I now have to tap the outside of a plane as I walk into it.
Did you get that from a pal?
I got that from a friend who told me that they did that, and they don't have OCD.
I did that.
And
I actually like doing that.
Yeah, and I just thought, well, now I have to do that. So I find it quite hard to hear other people's routines and not adopt them because I think, well, why haven't I been doing that? Because it's been keeping them safe.
Yeah, I presumed you had watched Aviator. I thought she must have watched Aviator. It's a great film anyway.
Yeah,
by the way.
well, maybe now I'm ready.
Yeah, and of course, back then when Howard, because Howard Hughes, I mean, that's what he had, wasn't it? It was OCD.
Yeah, very
but
extreme.
Wasn't educated, coping systems, bloke.
Certainly
probably scared
no
to talk about it.
CBT, I imagine. Yeah, which is the thing that's primarily, I guess, prescribed to treat it. That's cognitive behavioural therapy.
What would you like to say to people who are listening who are challenged by similar neurodiverse issues? Great blurb, great endorsements on the book. Scorpions, Tuppence Middleton, a memoir. It's fantastic. Beautifully written, by the way.
Oh,
really
thank
beautifully
you.
written. And clever. And the dialogue sections are amazing. And then there's the whole sort of murder mystery section where we can go left or right via the boxes and things. Sorry, people don't know what I'm talking about. Just read the book. It's great. It's a great read. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I think for people who have OCD, I really hope that they can see something of themselves in the book and that they feel that they can get to a place where, they can either free themselves of it or live with it in a way that feels at least partly harmonious. And for those who don't understand it or don't really know much about it, I really hope it kind of gives you a wider understanding of what really living with the condition feels like.
And just give us the headline misconceptions.
I think that, you like things to be clean and you like your wardrobe to be colour coordinated.
Maria Kondo'd.
Yes,
All
exactly.
Right, that's not it.
That's not it.
That's not it. You have a mug, don't you? Or you had a mug with OCD
Yes, yeah. I think I got it as a Christmas present. It says obsessive compulsive on it in my kitchen cupboard. And I think that's often, that's part of this sort of trivialization, isn't it?
Yeah.
That,
but you didn't take umbrage with it because you kept it.
No, it's my family and I thought it was fun. But yeah.
We have people talking about such subjects at our festival, Carfest. You're very welcome to come and talk about it and sell a few books because I'm sure people would flock to hear you talk about it. Because Bryony hosts a lot of our Q&A sessions.
Oh, great.
Imagine that, you and her.
Oh, brilliant.
How good would that be?
I love her.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's elbow each other.
Oh, you don't have to do that.
No, but it works though, doesn't it? Why not? I like it. I missed that.
I
from
know.
COVID.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Robbie Williams documentary, which I've only just seen. And he elbows everybody all the way through it. So I don't know if that's an OCD thing or a...
Oh, maybe.
It was way pre-COVID, so...
Yeah, I always feel like, now I'm talking about it, I don't want people to, you can't shake her hand, you can't look her in the eye, like alter their behaviour for me.
It's just,
I know.
It's just interesting. It's just interesting, it's enlightening, and thank you for writing the book.
Oh,
I really
thank you.
appreciate it. Let's hear it for Tuppence Middleton, everyone. Come on! Scorpions, Tuppence Middleton, it's out now.